The JSE closing weaker on Tuesday, while the rand extended the previous session's losses after official data showed South Africa's economy shrank in the third quarter. Independent markets analyst is Jimmy Moyaha, who joins us now for a quick update on how things are shaping up at the JSE. Jimmy, good morning to you and thank you for your time. Let's begin with that overview of how the markets are faring in early trade.
Morning, Tole. Morning to the viewers. Markets are in the green in early trade following the green movements across the Asian session. If we look at the US session, that finished marginally in the red with the S&P kind of finishing flat, but the Dow down about 0.5% and Nasdaq up surprisingly about 0.33% there. We saw that in Asian session. Tokyo was up about 2%, Sydney's up about 1.6%, and Hong Kong's up about 0.6%. On our side, we're up about 0.5% on the all share in the top 40. Resources leading the charge there, up almost a full percent. They were amongst the biggest losers in yesterday's session, so nice to see that recovery there. Industrials and financials are both up about 0.4% there. The rand, concerningly, back above 1890. We were close. In fact, we touched 19 rand yesterday, so to be back at 1890 is always a good thing. But the weakness that we're seeing in the rand is somewhat of a concern, and obviously will continue to be a concern going into the new year. Hopefully we can get some strength before the end of the year. Against the pound, it's down about a tenth of a percent actually, and about 1/5% against the euro. We're seeing that commodities pricing is looking quite interesting. The gold price, having touched $2,100 this week alone, is back at $2,027 an ounce, but it is up about almost 0.5% for this morning's session. Brent crude, most importantly, down below $80 a barrel. Gives me such great pleasure to say that. It's at $77 a barrel. It is up marginally about 1/3%, but again, below $80 a barrel, and we hope it stays there. We've seen that the OPEC bloc had their meeting last week Thursday. They announced those supply cuts. The market didn't really seem to be too convinced by that, and we've sort of seen that the softer Brent price has been very welcome in the global space.
Let's talk then about the S&P Global South Africa Purchasing Managers Index, which rose to 50 in November. What does this data tell us about the state of that sector?
So effectively 50 is neutral. If we are above 50, it indicates growth. If we're below 50, it indicates contraction. We were at 48.9 previously, so we had been in a contractionary space. We are now at a neutral point, which you would think would be a positive, considering that from here we could potentially go up. But the reality is this does not take into account the crisis that is unfolding in KZN at the Durban ports from a logistics point of view, because those shipping containers are going to have a severe impact on this sector in terms of how it affects manufacturers, how it affects those that are importing. So the delays that we're seeing there are going to definitely be seen in the next PMI data reading. Whether or not we're able to resolve that before then, if we're not, I expect we'll go back into a contractionary phase or contractionary space when we see the next data point. So positive to be at a neutral point, if only we could sustain it.
Let's talk company news then. Tharisa publishing a trading statement for the period which ended 30 September 2023. Help us make sense of that particular statement.
So this is a follow-on from what we saw that was published in October, I believe it was the 17th of October, earlier, around the fact that weaker platinum pricing or weaker performance in the PGM basket is going to have a negative impact on the business. They have to provide this update as part of the JSE requirements if there is a 20% shift, or at least a 20% shift in reporting numbers from this period and the previous period, and that's exactly what's happening. We're going to see that, according to Tharisa, earnings per share is expected to be down anywhere between 47.9 and about 50%, and headline earnings per share as well expected to be down between 30 and 33%. We're only really going to get a better sense of those results next week when the results come out. They should be released around the 14th of December. But the indication by all accounts is that earnings per share and headline earnings per share are going to be negative.
Let's conclude with the South Africa Sugar Association and RCL Foods. They want to interdict the Tongaat business rescue vote. What's going on there?
So a couple of moving parts there. So the Tongaat rescue vote that is taking place is the vote to determine which of the buyers is going to be selected to purchase the business. So this has been an ongoing process, and they've narrowed it down to two buyers, and that vote is to elect between the two buyers, or to basically weigh up the two offers that are there. The concern here, of course, from the Sugar Association and RCL Foods and other players in the industry is that there are outstanding industry levies that Tongaat wanted to have set aside. Tongaat had approached the courts to ask them to have this set aside. They lost that last week, that bid to have that set aside, and the judge was very clear to say that the levies are part of ongoing cost of doing business, and he actually likened them to statutory obligations such as paying your taxes. And so on that basis was the figure was not, or the amount was not set aside. We're talking about some 1.1 billion rand in levies at the moment, and as a result of that, the rest of the industry had to foot the bill. So effectively, these levies allow for the rest of the industry, or for all industry players, to achieve a similar or the same pricing on sugarcane. And because Tongaat did not pay their share of the levies, guys like RCL had to pay 230 plus million rand more to offset that for the industry. So the Sugar Association is looking to recoup this monies, and they've approached the courts to interdict this vote, saying that these monies need to be recouped, and RCL, obviously having been materially affected as well, would like to see this outcome. I suppose all industry players as well are saying, we all contribute towards this. You should not be exempt, regardless of the situation you find yourself in. So that's what's unfolding there, and it remains to be seen as to whether or not we'll see the votes go ahead. But what we know for a fact is, following last week's judgment, Tongaat is liable to pay those levies, and they cannot have those levies set aside the same way they had other creditors' debts set aside.
Very interesting developments there. It's a space that I'm sure we'll continue to monitor. Jimmy Moyaha, thank you very much for that markets update. Jimmy Moyaha, independent markets analyst.